Core strength has to be one of the biggest scams in health and fitness. If you're doing planks, dead bugs, bird dogs, or pulling your belly button to your spine, you're definitely going to want to watch this. Hey, it's Glenn here from Mehab, the world's leading physical therapy alternative, where we educate and empower you to take control of your recovery. If you're new here, make sure you click that subscribe button, and all the links mentioned in the video can be found in the description below. As always, this information is meant for education and demonstration purposes only. With that out of the way, let's get into it. Core strengthening has been one of the biggest buzzwords in the world of fitness for a long time now. It's used by just about everyone in the field, from yogis to orthopedic surgeons. The problem is it's one of the biggest scams of all time. People are misled into thinking that they have a weak core and that strengthening will miraculously fix or prevent back pain. This myth is still being spread today despite being overwhelmingly debunked. So what exactly is the core? Well, that depends upon who you ask. The term core has no agreed upon definition. Depending on who you speak with, it can include anything from the abdominal muscles, your back muscles, your diaphragm, your pelvic floor, the list goes on. In reality, there is no defined beginning or end to the core. One of the biggest problems with not having a definition is that you can't really make claims about something if you can't even define exactly what it is. So how do you test for a weak core? A simple Google search will reveal a myriad of tests that are basically gimmicks. Yet even that holy grail of core strength assessments, the plank. Planks, as with these other tests, while used by thousands, have no validity and provide no indication of core strength. Most of these tests are completely non-functional movements, meaning they don't stress your body in a way that it's used every day. Another popular move is to introduce a completely new movement to you and blame your poor performance on poor core strength. With any completely new movement, you're gonna suck at it. Here's an example. If I was to shoot a bow and arrow, I'd be pretty inaccurate. But I bet after 50 shots in a row I would get better. I didn't just get stronger, it doesn't happen in 30 minutes. What happened was I began to improve my motor skill and understanding of a new movement. It has zero to do with weakness. Let's start with some of the common myths regarding core strength. Number 1, a strong core stabilizes the spine. This belief grew an entire industry with gyms and clinics teaching tummy tucks, draw-ins, and trunk bracing to prevent injury, improve performance, and treat low back pain. The transverse abdominis is the primary muscle believed to be targeted with these exercises. It is used not only in maintaining posture, but also speaking, breathing, bowel movements, and vomiting, to just name a few. With such an apparent important role, if it was weak, it would surely cause all kinds of problems, right? Nope, it really doesn't matter. But how do we know this? There are several situations where core muscles experience a decrease in their ability to generate force, aka develop weakness. The first two result in an elongation of muscle, which subsequently decreases a muscle's ability to generate force, a phenomenon called passive insufficiency. This occurs in pregnant and overweight people where a growing baby or intra-abdominal fat elongate the core muscles. Despite a decrease in the ability to generate force, aka strength, there is no link to increased incidences of low back pain for these groups. The third situation is where there is damage to the core muscles from surgery. An example would be the use of one side of the abdominals for a breast reconstruction following a mastectomy. One side of the abdominals is completely separated and relocated to the chest wall, resulting in dramatic loss of quote-unquote core strength. An interesting side note is that in some individuals, the transverse abdominis is completely missing. Even with these extreme cases of core weakness, there is no evidence of increased incidence of low back pain or impairment in functional activities. These people don't just flop all over the place like those inflatable tube men you see at the car dealerships. They retain the full ability to stand, sit, run, and lift. They also do not have any increased occurrence of low back pain. Dramatic changes in core strength have no impact on the health or stability of the spine or contribute to low back pain. Despite over a decade of research, low back pain has never been attributed to spinal instability. Myth number 2, your core is not firing right. Back in the mid-90s, a couple of studies came out that found a delay in the firing of the transverse abdominis in people with chronic low back pain versus people without pain. A really bad giant leap was made from those studies. It was assumed that because this muscle is attached to the lumbar fascia, that it must play an important role in spinal stability, and therefore weakness or lack of control would result in back pain. The first problem is that all our structures are intimately tied together and require a knife to separate them. They work in multiple planes and together. Additionally, our body organizes and prepares for movement instinctively. It's not a conscious response. Activation of the transverse abdominis is just one step in a number of processes and does not mean it's any more important than anything else. This delay could also be a protective response to avoid fast and potentially aggravating movements. Want to guess how much of a delay in muscle firing was detected in those with chronic low back pain? 3 seconds? 1 second? Half a second? None of the above. 20 milliseconds. That's 1/50th of a second, a speed far, far beyond our conscious control or for a therapist to detect, test, or alter. 1/50th of a second launched the tidal wave of the core strengthening trend. Even the quote-unquote core exercises used to fix this delay and strengthen the core, again whatever that means, go against all the motor learning and training principles. Our body adapts to specific movement patterns, and what is learned in one motor pattern may not transfer over to another movement. Training should be specific to the activity or movement. Timing delays of muscles do not cause or increase the likelihood of low back pain. Core strengthening exercises are not well designed to reset any timing issues even if they were found to be relevant. No study to date has demonstrated any ability of the core stabilization exercises to fix any firing delays. Myth number 3. Core exercises increase core strength. We already know that there's no good test for core strength, but if by some miracle it was determined you had weakness, just how much stronger do you need to be? The answer may be surprising. It's basically 0. In standing, the deep spinal muscles do almost no work, and in some people they have no detectable EMG activity. An EMG measures how much activity is occurring in a muscle. Standing unsupported, your trunk stabilizers, aka your core, use less than 1% of their maximal voluntary contraction, meaning if they were to contract and generate as much force as they could, they use less than 1% of that. Even adding 32 kg, around 70 pounds, to that person only increases it to around 3%. During walking, the rectus abdominis averages around 2% maximal voluntary contraction. The external obliques, which basically wrap around your waist, are at about 5%. During bending and when lifting 15 kg, around 33 pounds, contraction force only increased by 1.5%. This begs the question, why do we have to do core exercises when almost nothing is needed for functional movements? This also supports the research mentioned earlier regarding the compromised core muscles, that weakness has no effect on spinal stability. This also proves just how bogus the core strengthening trend is. These changes in contraction levels are so small that they can't be detected by the person themselves, let alone by an external observer. Additionally, no studies have shown that increasing core strength reduces back pain. Several studies have shown no difference in the strength between people without back pain and those with chronic low back pain. An important thing to mention is that in order for muscles to gain strength, they must be challenged above a certain threshold. Studies have proven that core strengthening exercises are well below the threshold needed and would not generate any additional strength gains. Minimal increases of force are required for increased functional demands. A weak core or poor weak endurance does not increase your likelihood of developing low back pain. Core strength exercises do not provide enough stress to stimulate strength or endurance gains. Myth number 4. You have to isolate your transverse abdominis. You will see all kinds of gurus talking about how to isolate the transverse abdominis. The problem is that you can't independently isolate these muscles, and attempts to do so will override natural muscle recruitment patterns. There is no research to support the claim that the transverse abdominis or any other muscle can be singularly activated, even with extensive training. Attempts to isolate core muscles with a novice would more likely result in global activation. There is no evidence that core muscles work independently from each other. No evidence exists that a person can learn to activate one core muscle group from another. Myth number 5. Core strength treats and prevents back pain. This is one of the biggest claims made by everyone that uses core strengthening exercises, and a lot of people get some sort of core-based reasoning when they present with low back pain. Despite the numerous claims, several studies have shown that stability exercises have no significant differences in the prevention of low back pain. Okay, well what about the treatment of recurrent or chronic low back pain? Unfortunately, the answer is still no, not really. Several studies have found it to be better than general practitioner care, but no better than other therapy or general exercise. A large number of studies have found that general exercise and core strengthening exercises are equally effective. What this tells us is that improvements with core strengthening exercises are due to the positive effects of exercise in general and not due to the claims of increasing spinal stability or core strength. This now brings up an important question. Why give someone complex, often expensive, and difficult to adhere to core strengthening routines? I think what it really comes down to is most people just don't know any better or have financial incentives. People should be encouraged to do exercises that they enjoy and are more likely to stick with. While it could include core strengthening exercises if this is what you like to do, it has no additional benefits above general exercise and the limitations mentioned above. Core strengthening may be better than general medical care. Core strengthening is no better than general exercise. People should do the activity they like to do. Your core is involved in virtually every movement that you do. You can't sit up, stand, squat, get dressed, roll over, cough, or breathe without your core firing. It literally contracts tens of thousands of times in tens of thousands of ways every single day. The likelihood of it being weak is pretty much zero, and as you now know, even having true core weakness doesn't make you more likely to get back pain or destabilize your spine. Remember, the term core is not universally defined. The internet strength tests are not valid assessments. Even weakness from extremely compromised core muscles is irrelevant and doesn't increase your risk of back pain or destabilize your spine. Neither you or your provider can see or feel delays in your core muscle firing. Core strengthening exercises are largely non-functional movements, lack specificity of training, and are below the threshold to generate strength changes. Core strengthening exercises are often complex and difficult and provide no benefits that you can't get from doing general exercise. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Make sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.